All right, I'd like to resume the 26-27 Hood River County Budget Committee. Before we get to business, I'd like to take a quick moment of silence to remember Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner, who just sadly passed away. So we could take 1 minute, please. Called a minute. All right. Moving on to business at hand. Are there any additions or deletions to today's agenda? Moving on, any members of the public that would like to comment? Okay, cruising right along. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the May 7th meeting?
Yes.
All right. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I do have a comment for future minutes. I'm wondering what people think about doing action only minutes. Because I find that the description of the discussions we have is it's hard to do that accurately. I think so I assume Sophie did. They said, they're as good as they can be, but they don't really get the full tenor of the discussion anyway. So if someone were to read this and presume that they understood what was going on in the meeting, I think that would be incorrect. I'm curious to what people think of the idea of action only minutes, where you simply you refer to the video, which anyone can see, and you describe motions that are made.
I presume you would not have made that suggestion if it were not allowed, so clearly it's allowed.
It's definitely allowed.
Yeah.
You need to have the recording as the backup, so that if you need the detail, it is available.
I guess my point is, I think if someone thinks that they understand what happened in the meeting based on the summary that they read, they're going to have a very warped view of what we talked about.
Gotcha.
I think that they should watch the video and they will see what we did, and otherwise they just want to see what motions we made. So
It's like a more efficient method for staff, I'm assuming.
We've actually been having a discussion about that because I came from a place where we had action minutes supported by the recording. And so we've been exploring that. And so if that's a direction, I think staff would welcome.
best example I've seen is where in the action you have timestamps.
Right.
So go right into the video.
Right. And our technology just does not support that yet.
No.
The
Okay.
timestamp.
Matt, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as they are now.
I'll second.
With that. Thank you, Arthur. Any further discussion?
So for discussion, are we able to do that for this meeting's minutes, or is that a process you have to just take on?
I just want to know what people's opinion was on that.
I think, given the history of this budget year, perhaps it's a recommendation for next year. And then hopefully we will have the technology worked out to support the timestamps as well.
Right. Can maybe vote by, is anyone opposed to approving the minutes? That's unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 5, Sherry is going to walk us through our packet materials.
You received a package by email yesterday. Did anyone have any questions on the material?
I had a bunch.
Oh.
But are you going to talk us through it, or are you going to basically, you probably cover it? They're really basic questions. I'm just trying to figure out what's what.
What piece would you like to cover?
Well, so you gave us there's a bunch of different components, and one component that I found a little confusing was this open positions page. And I guess it wasn't immediately obvious the relevance of that what elements of this are relevant to the current discussion. And when I came in here, Allison told me that this is simply a summary of everything. It doesn't necessarily mean that these things have anything to do with general funds. It doesn't say that they are or are not
It
grant
does.
funded.
Look at the highlighted in yellow place. It's a general fund. If we leave it 6 months open with the highlighted total, that's one of the cuts on the cut list.
Okay,
So this defines it. Only these few were general fund and thought to be, I think there were a couple cut, like Brian's position. We all want to hire another position in assessment, so it's not here where it would be. So you can see.
is it in the left side?
It should be every open position in the county. This is HR's original form. I changed all the numbers.
Is it, so you basically, you
Well-
extracted from the left-hand block,
That
you
yellow.
extracted the stuff that's on the right. And you said you changed all the numbers. What does that mean?
Well, it is, so the first one was to give the board an understanding of all of the open positions with the time to fill, so that you would have an understanding of the fluidity that we have in our budget from the time to fill position.
What does time to fill mean in your world?
It typically means from point of advertisement till the time you get somebody seated and you're paying for them.
But it's not related to the beginning of the fiscal year,
This would
or it's
be,
just in the fiscal year, this is
In
the
the-
time within the fiscal year.
right, yes,
So for example, the 911 dispatcher, you're presuming that. That 6 months into the year, those positions will be filled.
that's what HR, this is HR's form. I just used it to drive home the general fund. If we left the positions open for 6 months in the new year, the value that would give us and the amounts changed because I added the PERS and the health and all these things.
It is also, it wasn't 6 months before, right? It was.
5 months in the last iteration, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought it was 3 months, so it was 5 months.
It was 5 months. And the list from the last time did include the vacant positions, which was the assessment records and elections position. That is left out of this based on the discussion of the board wanting to make sure that that department was funded with all staff needed to do that work.
Okay,
That number tracks back to this schedule to this number.
what did that?
This general fund number that is yellow tracks back to this last item on this end. So that's open for what's supported.
Okay, so to elaborate, if we continue down the path that we started discussing last week, which is a full year long freeze on hiring, the second number 602 just replaces the 323 on your proposed cuts, correct?
That's correct.
And it's probably obvious, but I'm missing the seasonal can be labor. We got 6 months open, but the time to fill is 8. And it is also 8 on the next.
Corey, Public Works Director, was leaving town for a conference or some meeting out of town this week. And she knew we would be doing this, so she sent sort of a cryptic email to us. Here, you can take this person for 2 months and this person for. So there are 2 positions talked about in the email. And those positions are only in the budget for 6 months. But taking her formula, it all adds up to about 8 months of loss.
The one is, so that's 2 positions, and one of them was not in the list because it is filled for 2/3 of the amount of time that she had it in the budget and offered us the additional third, so we added 2 months for that.
That is the reason it's 8. So
Okay.
typically seasonal is 6 months. This was a position where they're expecting the season to leave early, so it was gonna add an additional 2 months of saving. You see the fluidity of our employment numbers.
Totally understand. Well, I don't totally understand. I see fluidity. Yeah.
And in terms of providing an overview for you of the staffing. we wanted to put the 6 months in there because as administrator, I'm still very supportive of holding at the 6 months at this, as an option. It provides, us with the opportunity to revisit where we are with 6 months. Our experience in the last year, was that we, had more savings, than this represents. Additionally, in the last meeting, I had proposed a limited option retirement incentive program. That takes time to figure out. So if there was the opportunity to revisit this in 6 months before extending it to the full 12 months, we would be able to see where we are. We would be able to evaluate other potential savings that we could identify and evaluate that program and what its impact would be, so that there could be the consideration of extending to 12 months at that point. So I offer that up as an option, and that is why it is identified in the schedule at the 6 month level.
Question, Allison, is retirement incentive program something you think you could bring online in this next budget period, or are we further out than that?
Within the fiscal year.
I'm kind of confused on the retirement, incentive, I suppose. And isn't that typically more of an upfront cost that would hurt current year's budget to try to save money down the road? I guess I don't quite understand where that 50K comes from.
Well, it is, you're correct that we would need to go through a process to identify the positions and whether or not they would take advantage of the program. They're typically, when you're incentivizing something, there is an upfront cost. But the 50,000 was a placeholder to represent that you may not refill that position at the level that it is, because these positions are in the budget with the full representation of longevity and the years of earnings, which has the longevity premium in there. And those retirements also offer an opportunity of, would you combine or would you refill those differently? So again, those aren't things that you can figure out quickly. However, if given the time, we could take a look at a program. The board would need to approve the program because it is an incentive, and look at how that will play out during the fiscal year.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to throw out a comment that I appreciate the work that went into this. Before we were dealing with just a blanket statement that any open position at this point in time won't get filled for 6 months. And you've obviously done a lot of work to reduce it down to very specific positions with specific timelines that Clayton can actually plug into the budget document, along with a number of other suggestions. So thank you.
If I could follow on to that, have you yet had a chance to work out the, what the unappropriated entity fund balance is after this? I see the number, you have the effect on the unappropriated of 401,000. But with moving the 475,000,
That's the net after moving it out, so savings is here, then to move out, and so it's just as simple as adding
the
400.
number that was 2.4 million for the ending fund unappropriated ending fund balance in our budget document.
So it's actually,
8 million.
it's actually 1.4 million was unappropriated, so I would change it to 1,806,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. I added the vacancy for that.
1,806,948 after removing the timber deposit, as well as all of this $876,000 of the cuts, is a net increase of 401,000.
And so then the 475 would be reflected back in the timber deposit as well.
Right, and in terms of. So we would be spending reserves down by, so originally it was.
3.4.
Well, 3.875.
If you include. Right.
Reserve.
Right.
So 3.875 is now 3. I'm sorry. it's
3, because the 475 goes back into
Right.
reserves. And then the 400 additional in contingent.
Yeah.
We made additional 876,000 cuts. So if you take the 475,000. Removed revenue.
Right.
We still have 401,000 to add to the ending fund.
Yes.
Unappropriated.
This is not including the 12 months, this is with the 6 month.
Correct.
And so if you go to the 12-month plan, you then get another 300 and something thousand. Yeah. You know, right.
A little bit less than the 323, just because that 8 months on the seasonal, but essentially.
So even with that, we're still spending reserves down by 2.7 million, something in that range. Now, what's your feeling about during the course of the year? You gave us sorry, I thought I was looking at something, it was a list of potential, shops open or soon to open. But that, I wasn't sure what that phrase meant. Does that mean that people have already notified you that they'll be leaving, or are you just making?
No,
guesses, or?
those are positions that we would open. So for example, if we have a grants position, that is soon to be posted.
There's a PIO who hasn't been advertised yet at the very bottom of the open list. It's a new position.
Right. So, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, I find even, spending our reserves down by 2.7 million is not a result that I'm really excited or happy about. And I'm trying to understand, what sort of attrition we're expecting during the year, what flexibility, what management flexibility you might have to, I think, what have you made a comment a couple of minutes ago, that you were, that we would have the ability to have additional savings through the course of the year. I'm trying to understand, things like you have less tools to do that this year than you had last year. Last year, you're able to improve the position by end of the year, we spent down 1.7 million, I think it is. It's the estimate, it's projected 1.7 million, where we started with the number that was quite a bit higher, it was 4 or something, right? Okay. So I'm trying to understand what the magnitude of these numbers might be in this fiscal year. Just in terms of possibility, because you've taken a lot of the, and I don't want to use word tricks pejoratively, but a lot of the things that might at the end of the year be, surprises to the upside, like, hey, we actually got more than 3% increase in taxes. We know that that's going to happen. We already put that in. So that's not going to happen again. So what expectations should we have as to how close the actual performance is likely to be to the budgeted performance?
I would represent that the budgeted performance will be close to this. However, it is with the understanding that we know that we need to make major structural changes. Those structural changes need to be quantified during the next 6 months. That's why I represented that during that period of time, we need to take another look based on where we are, the open positions, the identified changes that we've made, the opportunity to have the early retirement program, and adjust from there. And that may positively impact the projected ending fund balance.
Can you describe to me what it would look like? What scenario would cause us to say in 6 months that, yeah, we should fill these positions before the end of the fiscal year? What would happen that would would make that plausible or possible?
To fill them before the end of the fiscal year.
The 6 month versus 12.
I think it would be an understanding that we had more openings than we anticipated. Typically, that when you head into an uncertain budget like this, you may lose positions in other places that you're not anticipating. So that is a piece of a contribution to a greater ending fund balance. In addition,
But let's take them one at a time. So for that one, wouldn't that mean that you had payroll money in the general fund that had already been appropriated that wasn't needed because you had people leave? So that money would be available even under a budget where we put the numbers down based on 12-month vacancy. That money still would be available if you had other vacancies, wouldn't it?
it would still be available, but with the tack that you would revisit that at 6 months. Should the Board of Commissioners desire to reduce appropriations, there is a process in order to do that.
Reduce appropriations. I thought
Through
you
a
were
supplemental
increasing them.
budget. I mean, if the Board of Commissioners is the ultimate fiscal authority. So if during the course of the fiscal year, we had more openings and the Board of Commissioners wished to reduce appropriations in order to not to control what spending would actually occur, you have the ability to do that.
I think I was talking the other way. I was saying, you're saying that you want to know if we leave these positions open for 12 months in the budget, and then you wind up with sufficient other vacancies that there's adequate funds available to cover those hiring, wouldn't you? Money would be there, it's already appropriated.
If revenues weren't earned at the rate we were expecting them, there is a monthly review done
I
by
understand
me.
that, yeah.
And I would work with the director to make sure
That's what it
revenues
is.
are in.
I thought I was talking about expenditures, but I said revenue.
No, but if the revenue doesn't come in that was budgeted, we can't spend the appropriated expenditure.
Yeah,
So,
I'm definitely not worried about that.
Okay.
I completely trust that you guys will be on top of that and wouldn't let us do that. I'm more trying to understand do we really lose any flexibility if we appropriate at the level of this 12-month option, so this one instead of this, and if in fact there are more vacancies than were expected, there would be the option to simply transfer payroll from this column in the general fund to this column in the general fund, which is well within our ability to do. So that works, right?
That works.
So Arthur, just so that I understand what you're saying, you're saying in theory, we could replace one of these 4 positions with another that comes open throughout the year to fill one of these 4 if we decide.
We're appropriating dollars, we're not.
It's just spending
Right.
authority for.
Right, but it's based on a schedule of payroll, but we're just appropriating dollars. We are putting it in a specific department, but from the state's point of view, I think general fund payroll is general fund payroll, right?
Correct.
They, at the level you reported to the state, it's one number, so they don't even think that's a change. But in terms of our budget document, we would go through, depending on what it is, either a budget adjustment or supplemental budget. From from this department to that department, if it was in the department, then that change was necessary.
Is there a difference in how much flexibility these two options give you, 6 months and 12 months? If at 6 months we could add money back, or how does that look to you?
I just think from a management tool, it provides the opportunity to see what we can do within that 6-month period. And then revisit so that the board has that control at 6 months to revisit the positions that were identified for keeping open That makes sense.
But if we put it at 12 months and we revisit it at 6 months, we could be making the opposite decision to add back. If we had said they were going to be closed, that we were gonna keep them, we weren't gonna open them for 12 months. We could also revisit that at 6 months and decide that we did have enough vacancies that I could
True.
fill some of them.
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
Are those two processes about the same?
I think so. I think, in regard to the overall operation of the county and the departments, I think giving the departments the 6-month opportunity, provides some flexibility, and, so it's, I mean, that's my preference, because, we are in the business of continuing to try to be an attractive place to work. And so knowing that we have open positions that we will look at again, at 6 months, I think gives us options.
One of the reasons I like the 6 month versus 12 month personally is that it is sort of a forcing function where the commissioners know that in 6 months, you know, these positions will be considered to be ready to go for hiring, and the conversation must happen again. I like the idea of, 6 months, knowing that we will have to come back to it. It's not just something we can say, well, we set it aside for 12 months and things are working out, maybe we just don't get to it. So a lot of these positions are very important in the county. This is very important work that I see on this piece of paper right here. And these people, when we need these people to be here, doing their job. We don't have the money for it right now, but
Right.
things change in 6 months.
So Matt, isn't it the opposite? If we appropriate it, it's appropriated, it's available to hire these positions in 6 months. If we don't appropriate it, then we have to discuss it in 6 months.
I don't think it's required to be discussed either way. I think it's an option either way. But if the board decides to take it up in 4 or 5 months from now, right before all the positions are, authorized again. There is a lot of flexibility there to take it back up. But if we just say 12 months as a group, then it almost is easier just to let them linger. That's how I see them.
So what I see, we're sinking really fast. I have even if it were $2 million that we were sinking, I would have trouble with it, and this is, I'm sorry, I keep on losing track of what the number is, but it's.
With these changes,
With the 6 month option, it's
About 3 million. I believe.
right,
it's more than 3 million, right? 3.2.
He's got a different calc that he's worked out, but contingency plus.
Tell me what your number is, I don't want to use my number.
So it's, if just the general fund contingency and the general fund ending fund balance with these changes totals up to 2,812,000.
Which is down from 5.8 million.
correct. But then it also is the additional 475,000 back in the.
Well, that's, you can't double count that though. So
Can we agree on 2.8? I mean, it sounds like we're just as a number.
I mean, the 2.8 is just the additional and appropriated plus contingency. I mean, we're trying to figure out our total burn from fund balance to start the year versus what it's gonna be at the end.
right, so let's, there's no whiteboard here, is there?
No,
Yeah.
And I mean, what fund balance are we beginning with? Cause I've got this like amended.
5.8 as the forecast fund balance. That's correct.
that
So
was
now,
in the proposed budget, was a $5.8 million beginning fund balance.
But then I think 2 meetings ago, you gave us year-end estimates.
That is the year-end estimate feeding the beginning fund balance.
That was about
5.8 is the number.
That's, yeah,
That's what the projected ending balance becomes the beginning fund balance.
Okay. So back to that, what is this 7.5 from the handout from like 2 weeks ago? Where suddenly we had underspent on personnel, underspent on materials, underspent on capital outlay.
Is that number general fund actual? I'm looking at page 21. Is that general fund actual 21?
No, it
I
wasn't
think
there.
that's the prior year.
7.5 million.
Is that the, page 21?
That's the beginning balance of the current fiscal year. And that's.
Page 21, second to last row.
Oh, that was, so was
We do have flip chart.
what's that?
We do have flip charts.
Oh, I thought it was sticky.
Oh. Broke the empty stand there.
So that's the,
I think you just got your answer on that.
that's what the current year act,
She walked away.
which. We have,
Allison, what are the environment contracts up for renewal? Are they all renewed at the same rate or what units do you have? With contracts up to?
So we have 5 bargaining units, during the last year, the last 2 years, they have all been settled for new terms of 3 years to 4 years. I think, Karen, this year we're anticipating, Leah, bargaining, that's the only one that's coming up in this. 2020.
I think there's 3 of them coming up for the next year. And I am believing off the top of my head which ones it is, but I think it's kind of easy, which ones I hope we get.
So 3.
Well, the reason I ask is we all know that it is mathematically impossible to have an annual agents funded with 3% property and tax increases and 6% employee wage increases. And as the easy way out, we're all focused on cutting positions. I still want a forecast. I just cannot, I know I'm harping on it, but I don't feel like I have information. I don't feel like I know why historically we have underspent the budget. And I don't feel like I know whether this current budget is where we're gonna land with it and where we will land in the subsequent 2 and 3 years. If you have that document, you take that into bargain and you convince the employees that, look, either your job is gonna go away or the person next to you is going to go away. And employees will suddenly say, you know, I can probably live with 1% less in COLA in order to avoid that happening. The employees have to be on board. And to do that, you can't give them something like this.
Right.
So I would still encourage us to get a sophisticated forecast in place, watching employees do it twice a year. And let that play out rather than us trying with a whiteboard and a piece of paper at the last 30 seconds, 30 minutes, figuring out how to save $2.5 million. It doesn't make sense to me in terms of a process.
Just the only problem I have with that is the direction of the board, and the board before us was that we were gonna pay competitive wages to fill positions because it makes no sense to appropriate for positions we can't fill. Full well knowing that that may mean fewer positions, so I mean, that would be 180 degrees from the direction that we have gone. So to me, that feels very much like the strategy of let's spend down all of our reserves. And we're gonna find another revenue source. I'm not completely convinced of that either. So I'm not sure how a forecast really. I see what you're saying, but I don't. Go ahead.
If I may, so when we do the renewal of bargaining, we're also doing that with an updated comp and class analysis. And so that comp and class analysis gives you the basis for fair pay.
Mhm.
So, and to make sure that the positions are priced equitably. There are also a whole range of other benefits that are provided. And so that also is a piece of the work. And so, there are things that can happen during bargaining if the members all understand the financial condition of the county. We need the time to get that analysis into place.
See a lot of real world experiences where that happens.
Actually, there are real world experiences where that happens, where, you know, your bargaining units will come to the table. I mean, this is an amazing place with amazing people. They want the county to succeed. We have great employees who, if they understand, the condition, I have had the positive experience in the past. They have come to the table.
So I'll continue to play devil's advocate. Let's say you convince the bargaining units to take a 2 or 3% haircut because expenditures are rising faster than your income is. And then we're still in a position where we're unsustainable and we have to trim. That seems like an even more, that seems like an even worse scenario for confidence in the bargaining units.
And we're not competitive.
That we're not competitive. And you said if we take a haircut, then we'll all be okay, and we're still not okay.
You never make that kind of black and white representation in bargaining. You would have people understand the financial position and the options and go from there. What I'm saying is that I hate for us to just focus on one option right now, and that is just slashing and burning positions.
I don't think those terms are fair, but for years, we have pled poverty and asked people to do more work than they should be asked to do, and to do it for lower wages than they should be asked to do it for. And we made a conscious decision to take a different path, identifying that we would deliver fewer services if we could not afford to do it, but we wouldn't be asking people to, you know, fill in for the person who just quit and isn't being replaced who's next to you. And to work for a lower than market wage. So that's why we did the comp and class, and we've adjusted our work expectations to be so more rational. So I don't, this seems like going back to exactly how it was done, you know, 6, 8 years ago.
Well, and the other piece of that is, we are doing budget in a time where we are having this analysis done. And we've got a summer of work that is going to look at how we're structured and how we could change that structure. And will that provide us with any, because there are structural options for how the county can deliver services. And those are policy choices that we need to work through in terms of the structural offerings of the county. And then the other piece is, I know revenues are difficult, but that is an option in terms of the piece of work. And you have to have people here to get that over the hump as well.
We also have to have reserves to be able to
Right.
be in a fiscal position to go into that.
Right.
And that's, to me, this has all been a question of conserving the most minimal amount of reserves that we can handle as we move into finding out either that we have a way to get more revenue, or we have a way to organize that's sufficiently more efficient that we can that it solves a big chunk of the problem, or we don't have the money to do it and we're delivering fewer services. You know, those are the 3 pathways that we can take, and I just want to make sure that we're sufficiently healthy at the end of this fiscal year to get there. And I can't abide by, you know, spending 30 million plus in revenues in this fiscal year. I'm trying to get myself to feel comfortable with, you know, the 2.4 million, or, you know, again, I'm losing track of all these numbers, but I'm not happy. I'm not happy with that, but I'm certainly not happy with it being you know, $300,000-$400,000 worse than that.
And those numbers that you're discussing are basically the difference between 6 months and 12 months.
So I want to, let's get the numbers straight.
But that's what you're basing this.
Yeah,
on.
yeah, I am, and
Okay.
I'm trying to make sure I understand exactly, so.
Well, the numbers on here are, you say 323 versus 702.
What with this $401,000 impact on the unappropriated any fund balances on this worksheet that you gave us. What is the ending fund balance? We can know, if you can see this spent.
That was a $2.8 million figure.
If you add the 400,000 to the current unappropriated and contingency and assume it goes all unspent, yeah, it's 2.8 million, 2.2,812,000.
So we're spending down exactly 3 million,
Right about, yeah.
or pretty close to 3 million. So
42,000.
we get it down to 2.7. So it's like.
Just keep using it. These numbers are. It's one side or the other, right? It's-
Yeah, how much
Which
is
one are we
spending
talking-
down or how much is left?
Right.
Right, so,
So if we go with the 12-month. Hiring freeze, our ending fund balance should be somewhere close to 3.1 million. Leaving us with a spend out of 2.7. So
Correct.
yes, which I'm. Actually feeling pretty sick about, but I don't see a path in this year to do better, other than management controls through the year. So my head is what discussion can we have with Allison, so that as the year goes on, we can significantly improve that number from the 2.7 million spent down. Because I don't, if we're going into the following year where theoretically we have to implement a new protocol, a new regime, whatever you want to call it, and we're already below our desired reserve amount. We're not leaving ourselves room for any changing of our mind or any surprises.
Well, and that, again, that is the whole discussion that we are set to have. Which would look at the various scenarios and then direction for what changes we make moving forward based on the analysis that's coming back to us.
So the only world that I see in which we're looking to reopen hiring is where we have significant new revenues that we get approved in this coming fiscal year. And that's a defined, acknowledged reason for doing a supplemental budget in the ORS. And if that happens, at that point, you can come and say, yep, good news, this is the new path that we're on.
Correct.
So that's what I would tell.
I think the unfortunate part of this whole budget. And when we talk about comp and class is making these cuts, which I understand what we're trying to do here, but we are asking. Our people to work harder in their positions if they are lacking these positions too. So.
The positions won't be filled anyway. It's
Right.
theoretical as to whether they're filled in 6 months or filled in 12 months. If after 6 months, we're still seeing no hope of filling those positions, that's the point. If after 6 months, we don't have a clear picture to create revenues to support those functions long-term, we're not filling those functions. You're not gonna be hiring somebody to fill those positions after 6 months, because no one's gonna come in to interview for those jobs.
I'm not disagreeing with
Yeah.
you. I'm just saying that this is going to put a strain on us by limiting the amount of people that we.
Well, no, I think that's when we should be reducing services at that point. Right? You're not asking people to do their neighbor's job. You're saying we're not doing that job anymore. No. That's the only path that's consistent with what we've been saying.
Letty,
Yeah, and that's a point I wanted to bring up. In looking at the numbers to not hire folks for 6 months or 12 months, and you see here, like the legal secretary, for 6 months, we're only gonna save 43,000, and we know they need that position, right? That's pennies compared to what we need to save. And I brought up in other budget meetings that we need to cut departments and programs, and we have a $50,000 savings and working and doing our veteran services differently. Unfortunately, we are at the last meeting, but we need to support our department so that they're successful, and then and cut or contract the other departments. We just can't do everything. And if we're gonna do something, we should do it well, not with a skeleton crew. I would be interested in, because it's such a low savings, to still be able to hire the legal secretary, if that's something that could happen soon. It's only a $43,000 savings over 6 months.
Allison, what is your thought on some departments that we could either contract out to the counties or consolidate together? Like how does that process look over the next year? If we adopted this as it was, is that even still on the table?
Absolutely, and again, this is a part of the Baker-Tilly analysis that is coming. The ability to do things differently requires an analysis and an understanding of what the impacts are. And that is our next quarter of work. I mean, we are going to get all of that back. We are going to go through a prioritization process and put together a work plan. My goal as county administrator would be putting together a work plan where we have dual paths of looking at revenue opportunities for the ability to operate a fully functioning county versus options if those revenues don't materialize. And that's what you would be faced with in the next budget year is we've worked through these alternatives. And here we are at the start of the next fiscal year, the revenues didn't materialize, so then we need to be looking at these alternatives, and you would be budgeting for that for the next fiscal year. And you would have these reserves to take you into that. Additionally, we have other areas where, for example, we have the PERS and lieu that is built across all county departments. That bond is getting paid off in 2028. So when we talk about dollars to transition departments, that provides us with another resource as well. So I think I'm saying that, as I stated in the beginning, this is a placeholder budget, knowing that this county needs structural change, either revenues or doing things differently. And you can't get to that in a short period like the last 5 weeks over the budget. We need to have the holistic conversation that I'm anticipating in June and July, and then you put a work plan together, and we are all working together with our sleeves rolled up, depending on what we said we're gonna do.
I would thank you for how much work you're putting into this. I would say that we need both. We need more revenue sources, and we need to work on consolidating services or dropping things off at the same time. I don't think that we are in a position where we can, hey, if the revenue comes in good, we're gonna be okay, because even if the revenue comes in above projections, we are still not going to be in the black for the year. So I feel like we need both, looking at where we're at now. I hope that hope the work you do, like we are on dual tracks at the same time, but we're making as many changes as we possibly can as fast as safely possible.
Yep. And that's the opportunity again, by looking at that early retirement, because obviously when you have open positions, then that gives you the flexibility to change things, just like we did with prevention 2 years ago.
I would like to comment on that also. We have a very small workforce here and people doing a lot of very important things. If we lose any one of those, the positions, who doesn't have any backup, we don't necessarily have an option to just shift their payroll to a different payroll bracket, right?
There are some positions that are single points of failure.
Yes.
There are others where it would provide an opportunity to do things differently. And yes, that is just a factor. And obviously, when you design a program like that, you've got to be equitable in terms of how you offer it. And so you have to live with the positive and adverse consequences of the decisions.
I mean, these are all year-long conversations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as you're hitting on.
Yeah.
I think, I need to bring it back to this agenda and what we can do this year as a budget committee to either, bind the county to, hey, you gotta have a balanced budget next year. I don't know. I'm just trying to find, we need to come up with something concrete that we can move forward by a motion.
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to get to. Last year was the placeholder budget. So I'm not satisfied with this year being the placeholder budget. So, this year's budget is the transition to to next year's world. When we talk about possibility of greater efficiencies, if you find efficiencies in the Baker Tilly process or any other process, those are monies that are already appropriated, and so those are available to spend in that circumstance. And if we get additional revenues, we can do supplemental budget to recognize those revenues and to plan accordingly. So I would say that we pass the budget with that's 2.7 million down. That's the 12-month open positions, and we grit our teeth at that number. Hope that number is better, hope that staff can work to make that number better through the year. And then hope that, and then the upside is going to be the efficiencies that they can find and any abilities that we have to generate new revenues. But to go with anything less than that, I mean, I'm already sick about this number.
Sure.
I just want to say, so that we're all on the same page, this is a picture in time.
Yep.
So we're picking these 6 positions that affect the general fund.
Yep.
If someone turns in notice who works and is paid by the general fund next week, how is that to be handled? Are we just taking
So that
these 6 positions for 12 months?
Clayton's gonna work up a budget document, which is gonna have payroll numbers for every single department. That's what we're approving. Right? And there may be discussions between the Board of Commissioners and staff about other management tools that may need to be implemented based on evaluation, after we've seen the Baker Tilly stuff on how dire our situation is and how we're feeling about the opportunities that have been presented to us. But I don't see a starting point being this 3.1 million. No, Matt, you got me confused. That was backwards again.
So even though we have these main positions, we still have the flexibility. We're really talking about the number and
We're
not
talking
the
about budget
specific
appropriations.
positions. I think that's some confusing to people. So we've said that these happen to be the open positions, but if that flexes, then as long as we come out with a number at the end, that's what we're after, correct?
You're at meeting the appropriation, yeah.
We're looking to make this as painless as possible by identifying the numbers based on positions that don't have people in them today. So we're not talking about going to people and saying, you're leaving tomorrow. Right?
Right.
So that's the goal here, to reduce the pain. It's not gonna be painless, but to reduce the pain. And that defines the numbers. And then, as Sherry says, the actual numbers will vary every single day of the week. She's gonna have someone coming and talking to her about something that's gonna make those numbers change.
So Arthur, logistically, what you're saying is that you want staff to pencil in 12 months hold on these current positions into the budget. Because obviously Clayton has to have specific positions and specific line items in order to do that.
Right.
But that, with the understanding that Allison, her team and the board would not hold departments to that, but rather accept substitutes as they come up.
This is what happens all the time, yes. So yeah, yes, it's a simple answer, and that's the way things always work.
Okay, is it prudent to have a motion specific to the $602,000 number? And are we able then to approve a budget today with these numbers?
I think Letty made a point which hasn't been discussed yet.
Yeah, I'm interested in, I feel good about the flexibility and understanding the need for the DA's office to hire a legal secretary. But I don't know that someone, and I wouldn't want someone to turn in their resignation notice tomorrow and then open up that possibility for the DA's office to hire a legal secretary. No, so I would be interested in proposing the 602,551 minus the legal secretary cost.
Hey, can you remind me what. That's a position that's open today. And this, and as you characterized it, you spoke to Matt, right? I think he's down at the pillar someplace. You spoke to Matt, and the question is whether his department can function without.
Right.
Can deliver basic services without that position.
Yes.
And that's where your concern is.
Yes, that's where my concern is.
So we're breaking something by not appropriating those funds, is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah,
We know,
already have the smaller team.
Sorry, I'm already losing a DDA position right now for the, due to the grant ending. So there's a big chunk of that in the other sheet. I have my entire
can
staff.
you come,
Sure.
where's the mic so we can hear it?
Sure.
Oh, we don't have mics on.
We've got a mic.
My entire staff, what I've approved in my office is 7.5 positions. One of them is a half-time victim advocate position, which I never filled because we have somebody that's doing the work of 2 people in there and working with juvenile. And doing everything that she's working, that's the point that we didn't have to fill that half-time position for our budget. I'm losing a DDA position because that grant is ending, so that's gonna be gone by the end of the fiscal year. So we're winding that down. I've had a legal secretary position that's been open now for 4 months, and my morale is awful in the office. I already had 2 legal secretaries doing the work of 3, and I have 1 that's probably applying for other jobs, and I wouldn't play her. I got a second interview with somebody on Monday and was told that I can't hire that position until this ending, after this meeting. I am ready to give an offer to somebody today. I can't take what I have, and I have 7.5 positions that have been approved, going down to 5 and run my office.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
So. There are 2 different ways that we could handle it. We could, and so there's a second chance to touch all of these things, which is when the board of commissioners approves things. And then I was gonna say, it's depending on how well, it sounds like. I heard what Matt said. I don't know what analysis you folks have done of that. And so, I would usually want to hear, a full staff report before deciding on something like that. So what we could do is we could, pass the budget as I had just suggested, and then have that, ask staff to prepare that information, because that's well within the amount of a change that could be made at the board of commissioners.
Could I ask that since we've allowed the DA to speak, we might allow the head of the health department to speak on the public nurse vacancy, and the sheriff, if he's here today, to speak on 3 patrol deputies vacancies. My thought was that with 3 patrol vacancies, the DA work might be a little bit lighter.
Talk to the city about that?
Yeah.
Everyone is suffering. I just think giving an equal voice would be fair.
And the alternative for the DA's office is that we have had a second legal secretary staffed through BBSI, so through a contract. And so with contract dollars, you're not making long-term commitment. And so that's also an option that I suggested on Monday when I was asked if he could hire the position.
But there's no alternatives to the sheriff's department. I mean, we're picking and choosing who we're cutting
Yes.
from here,
Right.
and that's brutal.
Yes.
And it's, I don't think it's 100% fair in any way, but I guess at the same time, I understand that we're going backwards, and that's a horrible position to be in, but losing sheriff's department people, losing health, losing legal secretaries, I mean, I don't know.
And
It
I,
seems like they're all very important, and
Every
I don't know how
position is
we-
critical. Yeah.
and I think we're also moving from policy to details in a way that, I think if we pass this budget with a 6 over 12 month, you have flexibility. The administration has the flexibility to move these things around and make those decisions. And you can bring those back to us as well at the next board meeting if needed. But I do feel as though either we're giving you the flexibility to decide how to come up with the 6 or 12 month number or not. And
Exactly.
so I just feel like that's, that's where I have trouble with policy versus administration. And none of it's easy.
So I made a proposal that we do the 12-month option, which I think staff understands what that means and to vote that into a budget document.
And I support the 12, I just can't in good faith. Knowing that we're spending down on our reserves so much and say, in 6 months, we can refill these positions.
Understood.
I can't in good faith do that.
You would want the understanding that we have the plan developed.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is work that is ahead of us.
Just to make it more formal, I made a motion, sounds like he was seconding it. I think.
I'll second the motion, yeah.
So you can start deliberation.
Yeah, well, let's continue the discussion then. Anyone want to add anything here?
I'm still advocating for that position only because I know there's someone that Matt can make an offer to now.
Just feel like it
To
had
lose that person. Wait,
Definitely lots of departments.
Yeah, so
yeah,
question I would ask is whether staff has reviewed this and is, putting a stamp saying, yes, that's correct. We don't.
My recommendation was for him to look at his contract dollars and operate that way.
So there's some disagreement there, it sounds like.
Well, so cool, we're getting into like individual positions, so I mean, what's stopping us from taking another random position from the left hand and just throwing it on the right? I mean. Should we be,
It's are not general fund.
they're not, these
That's
are,
why they're not in
At
there.
the AR, there are a couple general fund positions, but
these are all grant funded positions on the left.
for the most part.
Okay,
With the exception of the,
so expenditure equals revenue.
Road funds, which are grants, but county funds, but different fund.
Which ones aren't, Sherry?
there is a position in assessment records and election. And there is the proposal to convert a current contractor to a paid position for public information officer. So the net is, the contract is currently covering the cost for the employee.
And neither of those are on this list on either side,
They are on the full list side.
are they? I don't see them.
So the bottom two you're saying.
Yeah.
And
And
ARE is now assessments, records and elections. That's what their position is called, technician.
okay, so the county surveyor is not.
Correct.
PIO and the county surveyor.
PIO is,
Will be, but it would be, we currently have contract dollars in the budget that we would convert to salary to support the PIO.
What's the impact on the budget if we,
There isn't a bit. Long-term, there will be, but we're gonna have to evaluate that with the budget year. But that position, again, when we talk about critical positions, with everything that we have to do ahead, that's a critical position.
Is that the job that would lead a campaign to the public to talk about running elections and to try to get the public?
They
support?
would develop the materials. Obviously, we would have to have a citizens committee supporting, but there's materials development. We've been using contractors to do our public information. And the ability to carry out the work of the county with a position that is not an employee, that changes dramatically if they're a contractor and not an employee.
Can I translate that a little bit? Because the county employees cannot do electioneering, they can't do political roles. They can, however, prepare the materials
Yes.
which explain what is being proposed.
Right.
And that's a big chunk of that. That's what you start with. You start with a document that says, we are going to be putting something on the ballot. This is what it is. Here are some pretty pie charts, bar graphs, tables, whatever, which simply factually explain it, and lawyers review that with the PIO. But that person is not running a campaign. So the word campaign is where you threw Allison off.
I remember that name.
So,
Oh, that's great, thank you. You know, I see this as it's our job, now that we've seen a reasonable suggestion of what we could cut out of the budget, given the positions that we may hold open for 6 or 12 months. I'm not sure I see quite as much huge difference in the what would actually happen at the end of 6 or 12 months, depending on those, but say it's gonna be 12 months. I think our job is to say this seems like a reasonable amount of money. The incredibly painful decisions about that you have to weigh, the administration has to weigh, and every department has to weigh. Or those are really the hard decisions that you have to make. And the question is, do we feel that we're comfortable putting this much money in the budget? Arthur's very uncomfortable for good reason. I think we're all really uncomfortable. But I think our job is to say, we think this is a reasonable amount of money. This is what we can afford. And we trust you and your department heads to do the best they can to live within this. So I think that's how I feel about this, rather than wanting to make a decision for you about which positions. As much as I sympathize with every single person in the room that has a position that they would like to fill, and I would like to fill all of them. I'm not the person that has to manage that. So I feel that's your job.
Austin, can you please elaborate on what you were saying regarding the legal secretary role being funded with contract dollars, and for you're saying he would move to hire this person within the budget he's already submitted via his contracts and services line item?
We would need to go back and do an analysis of his budget, but that is an option if he did not have dollars allocated for a position, is to look at where his budget is with respect to contracts or grants. I don't know that we have had the time to do the full analysis of where his victims advocate grants are, how that crosses over into the general fund. So all that to say, we need to do an analysis, and that
We don't
might,
have time for essentially.
right, and that might be an option.
What I see here is there's an internal conflict between Allison and another elected official, which means that brings the board of commissioners in, just as internal conflicts between Allison and the sheriff would. So we're gonna have to deal with this as they work through it, but this is not the place to do that.
Okay.
That's my translation.
Okay.
I have
Anything else?
another question for Sherry. Hey, Sherry. I haven't seen any analysis of the impact of putting that 475 in the timber deposit interest fund, just leaving it where it is now and letting it continue to grow. What's your feel on what that would do in interest over this year?
We did cut it. Give that piece of paper.
It's either grown in the general fund or it's grown in the
Yeah.
deposit fund. But as long as it's not spent, it's earning interest, right? So
It's
in one fund or the other.
The account.
Our total balance in the investment pool is,
We went back and cut it $176,000 from the budget. But because Voices said they wanted that timber interest back in the timber interest fund, we took that out of it. That's why we only have a 400,000 plus savings.
Yes.
So when you look in
I
the,
can translate that though, because we had a discussion, board of commissioners
Yep.
meeting last week on this subject, which you should have reported on that to you. It's a reserve, and the question is simply, what are the conditions placed on the use of that reserve? So in our board of commissioners meeting, we discussed that for a little while and discussed the various options of it. And we asked staff to prepare a resolution identifying the usage scenarios for the timber interest fund as being to be used for capital or other activities which tend to improve long-term sustainability. So for example, if we had a major restructuring that had upfront costs, that would be another sort of thing that it might be appropriate for. But that's the thing that's gonna take a little while, because staff's gonna work through a whole bunch of different languages to identify that this is a special fund, a special kind of reserve intended to be used for special sorts of problems, but they have to put it in some language, and I think. Elsie said it's gonna do it 2 months, probably minimum before we see that back. And so it's definitely more than a month, but we will have a policy, but there was a consensus that we wanted to see this reserve identified as something that isn't casually spent for, casual for whatever, but isn't spent for,
ongoing operation.
ongoing operations because it's such an unstable fund.
It's on page 177, so you can see how, the
It's
current
been
status.
building.
Yeah.
Yep, I have that here. I'm just trying to figure out like with these changes from the last couple of weeks. We leave that 475 in timber interest deposit, like how do we expect that chunk of money to grow? Are we gonna earn another 200,000 on it? I mean, what do we?
It depends on the market.
Sure,
I have, there's a policy in place by the state and by the Board of Commissioners that allows certain safe deposits and those guidelines and percentages. So we manage as best we can within those, and it's been a good market within that world in the past 3 years, so I've been lucky. But it's a healthy fund, but it sounded like the option was not in line with what we had read in the administrative code previously. And if the budget can pass with just moving the interest fund back and just having a $400,000 additional cut, I'm for whatever passes the budget, and we're gonna muddle through this year and do the best we can to continue cutting.
So Matt, that fund, most of the money in that fund isn't interest on the money in that fund, it's interest on the timber fund itself. So
Oh, I
there's this
see.
fund that's $10 million,
I see.
12 million, something.
That's the variability in how it grows.
Yeah.
So it's interest on that, not interest on the.
On the actual interest fund balance.
Right.
I sorry, thank you.
Right.
That helps.
And if it were in the general fund, it would earn interest, it would bring it into the 0301 division instead. It all gets allocated based on its percentage of full cash. So
So this
general
general
fund,
question of what is the intended use of that fund? Not, we're not gonna spend that in either scenario, we don't spend that.
I understand. Thank you.
I don't know why I'm hung up on this. I think I'm kind of with Lydia on this, the legal secretary. I understand where you're coming from, Arthur. What's the scenario where the Board of Commissioners spend the money he needs to hire a legal secretary? Because it really seems like he's getting hammered in this budget. And I mean, I read his narrative, and it was the one time in this entire budget document where I was like, wow, that department needs more money. I mean, I'm one opinion in it, but it feels like it's hard for me to swallow, and this is my only opportunity to have any input in the election process.
So is the sheriff.
Sheriff?
He's getting hammered too.
Well, I mean, he also gets a public safety levy where he gets $2.4 million from taxpayers to operate, so.
I would,
Except we're supposed to follow through with promises we made to the community. And that includes having the ability to put deputies on the road.
Understand? And I don't understand the operations that go into. Sheriff's
Fund
Department.
the DA. The
Yeah,
levy
I would-
also funds the DA.
I would suggest that all of the departments have been hammered this year. And so I think, it is the understanding of,
This is 28% of his workforce.
understood.
So what will I think he didn't say, you asked, how are we going to proceed?
Yeah, is there a scenario by, where he's actually able to get a legal secretary, I guess, I'm just curious, what does that look like?
Well, that's where, again, we'd like to go back and look at his fund and look at the options there. He's got general fund and he's got non-general fund funds.
Right, but there's not another commissioners meeting for what, 3 weeks?
Right.
No, this budget has to be passed by the Board of Commissioners, so. The idea would be that they need to resolve that before this meeting. So before the next Board of Commissioners meeting, at which we take up the budget and the ability to make small changes in it. And if that's a change to be made, then that gets discussed then. I think you're asking what's gonna happen between now and then.
Well, just,
And I haven't heard.
I heard he's ready to offer somebody employment today, and it's a. It's a position that he vitally needs to operate. And that's just being very concerned. I mean, obviously, we're dealing with a really tough scenario. I just. Find it hard.
So the budget isn't passed until the Board of Commissioners has passed it. So if he's making an offer based on something that the Budget Committee did, there's a chance that the Board of Commissioners could reverse that
Okay,
before their meeting. And so in either case, they're gonna need to work this out, and they're gonna have to explain to us what's happening.
We are a week late, if you'll forgive me, on the budget process and making decisions with this committee. I would ask that we make a decision today.
Why would we wait? If there's a potential chance that at county commission, we would make a change, why would we wait? Then do it now.
I'm seeing a disagreement in staff, and I don't.
That's what you
We
said
air
needs to
that
be
here
worked out.
because I don't know what's going on here. I see looks, I see people uncomfortable, and I don't know what it all means. So I don't think we have all the information on that.
I would like to say that as a budget committee member, I'm even further removed from these processes, right? So I have even less input into the situation, so I feel even less comfortable advocating for specific positions. That is more on the BOC and staff, right? So from a broad stroke, I think I can agree with you to approve this with the 6 or 12 month, however we decide as a group, but I don't feel comfortable weighing in any more heavily on the rest of it at the granular level. So I don't feel like it's my place specifically, and there is room to make other adjustments, it seems like, which is great.
well, it seems that with the motion on the table. That we're locked into a dollar amount, is that fair to say? 602,000?
It's a dollar amount, exactly. Clayton's gonna work out, he's gonna put everything in the little columns, but we've given him all the information he needs to.
With the caveat that someone could resign tomorrow and that.
I don't think he would include that in the budget.
No, but I mean, you can shift around dollars as we've discussed.
Yep.
And then that is the Board of Commissioners and the departments as to who decides what's critical to fill next.
The Board of Commissioners, charter, so policy approve the budget, and then I as administrator administer. So that is where we determine, what positions get filled.
So a vote for the motion would preclude Matt from offering legal secretary position tomorrow or not?
You would be voting for it without his department having the budget to hire. And again, what we can do is go back and look at his budget, which I don't believe has had, I mean, Clayton's gone over every budget in deep detail, but, a fresh look of where we are with the grants that he also receives, so.
So you're planning to do an internal review of this budget?
Yep.
Am I just reiterating my answer on your specific thing is, I'd be surprised that he would be making an offer based on a discussion in a budget committee meeting, if that's not the end of the road.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
In either case, we get to the end of the road and it's a point to make a decision.
Right, are we ready to have a vote on this on the floor? Which is to approve a 12-month hiring freeze and.
Let's not use that number.
Okay, to keep.
Do you want to restate the motion?
Yep, yeah, my motion was to ask Clayton to prepare the documents, or ask staff to prepare the documents based on the 12-month scenario that we discussed. And that means that that's simply appropriation level. He's gonna work up a document, which will be this entire book, with all the numbers filled out based on the 12-month scenario, and that will advance to the work.
Okay.
And that's what he said.
I'll second it.
Excuse me, it does need to include the option levy agreement with this.
So.
Those are separate.
Process.
We'll get to that. So we're just gonna do the motion on the 12 Yes, on things. Okay, so Arthur, we'll start with you on the.
Yeah.
Point of clarification, Clayton, you don't appropriate by department, correct?
Our RLB1 is by fund by category, yeah, so we show it in the budget documents required, but we wouldn't be held to that.
Yeah.
By budget law is that category.
And I'm okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not supposed to, tell me, am I?
Your one is suspense.
Yes.
Sheriff. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so, I think that takes us to close to the finish line. Any final comments that anyone wants to make?
But we
We have
need
to
to
give
vote
a
on.
motion.
No, I know, we know, I'm gonna need someone to make separate motions for each one of these,
Yes.
but just before we get there, any final?
This would be a good time if you have advice or requests to pass on to the Board of Commissioners. General policy things. I think you've made some pretty important suggestions already on what you view as the Matt, one of the Matt's, for example, described the need for both revenue and efficiency contributions. I think that was Matt F. Is there anything along those lines would be a great time to pass it along?
By motion or just?
I just want to hear from the public members on budget committee if they have any
Recommendations so far.
recommendations to you.
I would love to see a balanced budget. Honestly, I mean,
This is a balanced budget.
yeah, well.
It's a balanced,
I would like to see
sustainable budget.
revenues and expenditures balance, and I would like to see next year's budget. Say, if we can raise revenues to here, this is what we get. If not, this is what we get, and we're not gonna spend on any motions. That's what else. Right.
One of our core values is innovation, and it was great to hear that at least on a somewhat, on some level, staff has been starting to use AI tools. Like we did hear about that a couple weeks ago. And I'd love to hear that. I would love to see that expand this year in a very purposeful way, because we are short-staffed and
Yeah.
as a technology tool, we don't necessarily have an option not to. So I would love to see very purposeful movements in that direction to use it in whatever, to just use the tools in whatever way we can, because just coming from a different municipal department, we are very behind in our use of technology where I work at. I know that a lot of municipalities struggle with adopting tech tools, and we don't necessarily appropriate enough to let you use what you want, but
Right.
it is very important that we move forward there.
That's another important part of our work is identifying our modernization, and there is gonna be a cost to that. And so, yeah, that's on the work plan, and we know how much more efficient it will make us. So,
Joe, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I'd like to know how we go about doing another revenue source. Where does that come in? As a to move on that. We've all identified it, but how do we go about that and
So,
be a part of it?
hopefully you guys will come to the Baker Tilly presentation, which will be in July, you said, or June.
June,
In June, so you'll see the result of their analysis. And then that's when we would give staff direction to proceed to look at certain options, depending on how we evaluate the efficacy and the chance of success of those options. But we've taken a one-year glide path picture here, so we've got 1 year of dues. And, but Matt, number one, me too, but Matt number one said. The reality is next year's budget does have to be balanced because we can't burn through another $2.5 million or so of reserves next year because there aren't that much. Isn't that much?
Yeah.
So
My concern, thank you.
Chris? Anything to add?
I'll throw it out there one more time. I still don't know the scale of the problem.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a forecast that explains to me the historical difference between what we budget and what we actually end up spending. We always end up spending less. I want a forecast that explains that to me. That's it. I don't disagree that we have a problem, and I know that it's a big one. I can't put a number on it, but I know that it's big. And with that, I would simply say, pursue every single option you can. I've been through this budget cutting process at a much, much larger entity than the county, and it's brutal. But $2,000, you pursue every $2,000 you can. You just, all options are open.
Yep.
Thank you.
Does everyone have the script? I would entertain some motions here to get them to my list. Each one needs to be a separate motion. Sorry.
I'll start.
I'll
Go ahead, Joe.
make the first one. See, I'd like to make a motion to approve. The Wingmaster District budget with no taxes levied as presented or modified from July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027.
You have to be one or the other, presented or modified as this is.
Okay, present. From July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027.
Second. Thank you, Matt. Any discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed? Captain Chair votes aye. Passes, thank you. Moving on to the Windmaster Sewer District. Or sorry, the Windmaster Urban Renewal District, sorry.
I'll do it. I make a motion to approve the Windmaster Urban Renewal District budget with no taxes levied as presented from July 1, 2026 to June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye, thank you. Let's go to 911. And Brave Soul.
I'll do it. I make a motion to approve the Hood River County 911 Communications District budget, permanent rate levy and rate limit of 0.5644 per 1,000 as presented from July 1, 2026 to June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Passes, thank you. And now for the grand finale.
There's some words missing there, so with a. It's a county budget with a permanent rate. I'll go ahead. I move that we approve the Hood River County budget with a permanent rate levy of $1.41.71 per thousand and local option levy with a rate limit of 78 cents per thousand as modified from July 1st, 2026 to June 30th, 2027.
I'll second again.
Matt? Last chance for discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. All right, thank you, everybody. Been
Thank you all.
been a very intense set
Staff.
of meetings. Thank you very much, staff.
Yeah.
Thank you, department head for showing up, working there.
Starts tomorrow.
Yeah, we will be. I would need a motion to adjourn this meeting. Once and for all.
I'll make said moment.
Thank you, guys.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on adjourning? All right, we adjourned 26, 27, but the committee meeting for Hood River County. Thank you.